Okay everybody, so today, this 2001 Jeep Grand Cherokee, I'm attempting to fix the oil leak that's dripping onto the exhaust and makes a stinky mess as I'm driving the Jeep. I thought perhaps it was the valve cover, however I took the valve cover off, the gasket looks good. So I'm not sure exactly where it's coming from. It seems to me like it's pulling up somewhere in this area. Sorry, I'm knocking out some reps real quick while I'm doing this too. But anyways, it seems like the oil is pulling up in this area a little bit, trickling down, going down that way, along the block, down onto the exhaust, burning off, making a nasty stink. So what I've done is I've purchased some intake gaskets, and I'm going to pull this intake off, change those out today. So the first thing I'm going to do is get this big air box out of the way. I'm just going to remove, or loosen this screw here, loosen the screw over here, disconnect this stuff, disconnect any hoses that may be connected to it, such as the one there. Doesn't look like there's one on this side, so I will begin by removing that. So on this box it looks like there's also a little bolt on either side holding it in. One there and one down up under there. It's kind of hard to see, so make sure you get those things too. Okay, so you have your air box out. The next thing is to get this intake off. The way you're going to do that is disconnect all the little hoses that are going up in here, disconnect these two cable connectors here. I'm going to remove the bolt here and the bolt here, and go ahead and disconnect the linkage here and here. The way I'm going to disconnect this one is pretty simple. You just kind of do that and slide it over. It comes right out. This one I think you just have to kind of pop it off. It looks like just kind of maybe stick a little screwdriver in there and pop that. Kind of swing this out of the way a little bit, and then it looks like you're gonna have to remove your coil packs, because the bolt that holds the, or the bolts I should say, that hold the intake in are underneath the coil pack. So the way you're gonna do that is take this nut off, disconnect your cable harness right here, pull it directly up, maybe twist, give it a little twisting motion, it should come right out. Do that on all four on this side, all four on this side, then remove the bolts that are underneath it. You can kind of see there's another bolt underneath. Pull that out, and then in the very back looks like there's another bolt. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, there we go, right there. And you're going to remove that. Once you've got all that stuff disconnected, it should just pull right out, directly up. Don't stick a screwdriver in between it prying on it, because you might break this or damage the surface. But that's what I'm going to do. I'll show you what I've got when I've got it all taken apart. Okay, so you've got all your coil packs out, you've got all your wiring removed, you've got all your hoses disconnected. Now's a really good time to check out these hoses here, because if you've got a vacuum leak on, I think this hose, I'm not sure exactly which one, but one of these controls the actuator for the AC. So give these all a good check, make sure they're not cracked while you're in here. As you can see, I've got my coil packs removed. You can see here the nut I was talking about you have to remove to get the intake out. So you've got a series of those running down the side, and then in the very back you've got that joker back there, and I'm not sure if we have one on this side. Oh, it's on the opposite, it's on the front. So remove all those, and your intake should be able to come right out at that point. I have yet to disconnect this stuff because I couldn't get to that bolt. I busted my thumb on it. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect these, however. Actually, once those are disconnected, I shouldn't have to get that bracket off of there. But I've got this disconnected as well. And I'm going to try to get this thing out. One thing to note, however, when you're putting this back together, you probably did notice that you had to remove some grounding straps off, I think, this post right here, and then the very back one on the other side. Make sure that you reconnect those battery grounding straps when you put everything back together. Otherwise, you will have electrical issues. So be cognizant of that fact. I will repeat that again when I'm putting everything back together. However, I'm noting it now as well because it's very important. So I'm going to go ahead and get this intake off here, and then we can work on getting these gaskets changed out. Okay, one big issue I ran into when removing this, it wasn't a big issue I guess, but it was kind of a pain in the butt. As you can see, Jeep or Chrysler or whoever you want to blame has decided that running the fuel rail line directly over this bolt here was a very good idea. This bolt is the very front passenger side bolt on this intake. So I could not access it from straight on top of it to get a socket on there. So I had to loosen it with this 10mm wrench like this. That actually worked. Then this is the bolt. Let me show you that. You can see that's quite long, maybe about 2 inches or so, which there's not 2 inches clearance above this fuel rail line. So instead of removing the fuel rail line, because I felt like that would be a big pain in the butt, what I did was I grabbed a really big screwdriver and just kind of pried up on it a little bit, very gently. I didn't kink the hose, didn't damage, or the line rather, this is a metal line, steel line. I didn't kink it, I didn't do anything like that. I just kind of put the screwdriver here and gave it a little pry upwards until I could loosen it all the way. Once I had it all the way loose, I stuck the screwdriver all the way down, not on the plastic, down to the metal part down there, and gave it a little pry this way so that I could had just enough clearance to pull that bolt out. So I just wanted to give you a heads up again on that business. It was kind of a pain in the butt, but it wasn't too bad, and I was able to get it out. And actually, it looks like I was incorrect about removing this part. I was saying to pry it out this way, when in fact you have to pull it forward while pushing this back in order to allow it to release. You can see, well, if I can grab the daggone thing, that it's got that slot which faces towards the rear with the 2 little prongs on it, and that's how it gets in there. I'm sorry if this is kind of blurry. This flip isn't very good for close-up, but yeah, that's how you get that out. And then I'm going to remove them from the bracket here. That way I can pull this intake completely out of the truck. Okay, so one other fun item I just ran into in relation to that fuel rail again. You have this sensor here, which was down there in that little port, and the way I got to that was you have to use this Torx wrench. It's a VT20 is the size, and I attached it to this little tiny ratchet that I have and got it loose. After I got it loose, I used this to get it undone the rest of the way, and I also used a magnet to have it on the screw, so when that screw came loose it didn't fall down into my engine compartment and get lost into the eternal abyss. So now that I've got that off, I think I can get the intake out. As you can see, the intake is nice and loose. It just needs to come out at this point so I can switch out the gaskets on it and then put it back in place. Another good thing you might want to do is, there was a bunch of dust and dirt up in here and everything, is just kind of give everything a good, spray down with a little compressed air to get all the sand out. And now would also be a good time to change out your spark plugs, since all you've got to do is reach down in there with a wrench, pop those bad boys out, and pop new ones in. I did not get spark plugs, but I think I'm going to run to the auto parts store and do that while I'm at it. Okay, so it does appear as if I was mistaken about how this job is going to actually go down. I've got my intake completely loosened up. As you can see, I can lift it up and gain access to it. However, the bottom of this intake is very rounded and goes down into the valley between the engine, between the cylinders and everything. So I'm not going to be able to pull this whole thing out unless I were to remove the alternator, the AC compressor, the fuel line here, the fuel rail, and then maybe I would have enough clearance to bring it out the front, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But one thing I am 100% sure about is that if I lift this up, use a pick, pull out the old gasket, push the new gasket in for each one of these runners, I will be able to get this job done without doing that. How do I know? Because I've already done that for the cylinder right here. So I pulled that one out. I'm going to go ahead and pull this one out just to kind of show you what I did. Basically, I have this little pick that's shaped like this. Pretty handy. I use it for a lot of different things. But I'm just going to kind of stick it up in there ever so slightly. Push down on the gasket. I'll reach up in there and grab it. Boom. There you go. Gasket is out. The next thing you do from there is just push the new gasket in. It's pretty straightforward. The way these things are channeled, I don't think you can really get it in there incorrectly as long as you get it in. And boom, there you're going to go. There you go. So I'm going to do that for each one of the cylinders and then start tightening everything back down, putting everything back together. And I am going to run to the auto parts store and get these spark plugs changed while I'm at it. Okay, so one other thing I had to do was remove these two posts that were sitting here. One was on this side of the motor, one was on this side of the motor. Especially on this side, it was very tight and difficult to get my hand up in there, but I was able to do so, and I've got my new gaskets in. So from here, I'm going to start reassembling everything. I'm going to start with those two posts, put those back in, then I'm going to put these little posts that go along that way. These bad boys. I'm going to reinstall my sensor, and make sure you grab your grounding straps, the one that goes back here, and get that reconnected. Make sure this grounding strap gets reconnected. There's also another grounding strap back there in the back. It's kind of hidden at the moment, but it goes on that back post there. Make sure you get that reconnected. Those are very important. Again, I'm going to reiterate, make sure you check all your hoses. Make sure none of those are brittle or broken. I did find one that had a tear in it, so I'm going to replace that. And I'm going to go ahead and do my spark plugs while I'm at it. So I think that gives you all of the information you're probably going to need to get this job done. It is doable. It's kind of a pain in the butt. It's taken me about, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour up at this point while recording. So I would say it's probably at least a good 2-hour job to get this done. However, if your Jeep is leaking like mine is and dripping down on the exhaust, it's probably worth it to get it done. And the parts only cost, I think, $25. And if you take it to a shop, I'm sure they're going to nail you with some ridiculous fee. So that's it. I wish you luck in getting yours done. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you like this video if you think it helped you out. Make sure you check out my page as well. Subscribe. I'm going to have a lot of other how-to videos on this Jeep in the future because it does need a little bit more work. So make sure you stay tuned. Thank you for watching.